Hello and welcome back to Economic Fallout. Today we're diving into a journey through time as we explore some of the most significant economic crises in history and the lasting aftermath they left behind. Whether you're a student of economics or just curious about how past events shape our present, this video is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Disclaimer. The information presented in this video is for educational and informational purpose only and should not be taken as financial or investment advice. Always consult a professional for financial guidance. Before we get into the specifics, let's talk briefly about what we mean by economic crises. These are periods when economies face severe downturns, characterized by sharp declines in GDP, soaring unemployment, market crashes, and in many cases, profound social impacts. While each crisis is unique, they often share common themes like systemic failures, policy missteps, and unforeseen external shocks. Today, we'll focus on three pivotal moments in economic history: the Great Depression, the oil crisis of the 1970s, and the global financial crisis of 2008. Moving forward in time, the 1970s brought us another economic shock, the oil crisis. In 1973, members of the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries, OAPEC, proclaimed an oil embargo, which was aimed primarily at nations perceived as supporting Israel during the Yom Kippur War. This sudden restriction in oil supply led to skyrocketing energy prices worldwide. But the crisis had an additional twist. Economies began experiencing stagflation, a situation where stagnant economic growth combined with high inflation. This phenomenon was particularly perplexing because traditional economic theories at the time couldn't explain or address it adequately. The aftermath, the oil crisis, forced governments and businesses to rethink energy policies and economic strategies. It led to a push for energy conservation, the development of alternative energy sources, and a re-examination of economic policies to better handle the dual challenges of inflation and unemployment. Our first stop is the Great Depression, arguably the most infamous economic crisis in modern history. It all began with the US stock market crash in October 1929. Stock prices plummeted, and what followed was nearly a decade of economic misery. During this period, unemployment in the United States soared to around 25%. Banks failed in large numbers, and global trade fell drastically. The causes were multifaceted. Speculative investments, inadequate regulation, and an over-reliance on credit all played their parts. The impact wasn't confined to the United States. Economies around the world suffered, leading to political upheaval and social unrest in many countries. Why is this important today? The Great Depression taught governments the importance of having safety nets and regulatory measures in place. It spurred significant reforms such as the New Deal in the US, which introduced programs aimed at job creation and financial system reforms. This crisis underscored how interconnected financial systems are and how essential it is to learn from past mistakes. Fast forward to 2008, a year that shook the global financial system to its core. The global financial crisis was largely triggered by the collapse of the housing bubble in the United States. Banks and financial institutions had engaged in risky lending practices, offering subprime mortgages to borrowers who were less likely to repay their loans. These risky loans were then packaged into complex financial instruments and sold worldwide. When the housing market collapsed, it led to massive defaults, and the interconnected nature of global finance turned a regional problem into a worldwide crisis. Major institutions, such as Lehman Brothers, collapsed, and governments around the globe had to intervene with unprecedented bailout packages and stimulus programs to stabilize their economies. Lessons learned: transparency and regulation. The crisis highlighted the need for greater transparency in financial markets and tighter regulatory oversight to prevent excessive risk-taking. Systemic risk awareness. It also underscored the dangers of interconnected global financial systems. A shock in one region can have cascading effects worldwide. Reforms. In its aftermath, many countries implemented reforms, such as the Dodd-Frank Act in the United States, aimed at increasing oversight of financial institutions and protecting consumers. So, what do these historical crises teach us? First, they remind us that no economy is immune to downturns. Whether it's a market crash, an oil embargo, or a housing bubble burst, vulnerabilities exist and sometimes they compound. Secondly, each crisis has sparked critical reforms. From regulatory overhauls to new social safety nets, governments have continuously learned from these events to better protect citizens. In conclusion, the historical economic crises we've discussed, the Great Depression, the oil crisis of the 1970s, and the global financial crisis of 2008, each offer valuable lessons on the importance of regulation preparedness and the need for coordinated policy responses in times of distress. While these events were devastating at the time, they also spurred innovations and reforms that have shaped the modern financial landscape. Understanding these events isn't just an academic exercise. It's about equipping ourselves with the knowledge to navigate today's economic challenges and to advocate for policies that safeguard our future. As you continue your journey in learning about economics, remember that each crisis is a chapter in a larger story of resilience and recovery. Thank you for joining me today on this historical journey through economic crises. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Economic Fallout for more deep dives into economic history and current affairs. Also, feel free to leave your thoughts and questions in the comments section below. I love hearing from you. Until next time, stay informed, stay prepared, and thanks for watching. This is Paul from Economic Fallout.